Hi, I'm Mike Overly, author of Guitar Encyclomedia. This is Guitar Forum 2.0. Welcome back. Well, you can see that tonight's show is really not about guitar or even bass like we've done on some other shows. It's about the ukulele. And yes, I did say ukulele because that's actually the way it's pronounced in Hawaii and the way it should be said, probably. Anyway, the whole point of the ukulele is that it's, first I'd like to begin with, it's really not a little guitar. It's an ukulele. And ukulele has a very rich history, and the history begins in 1879 when some Portuguese people came from Madeira and they came to Hawaii, and they brought with them the braguinha. Got to roll those R's for that Portuguese. And that then became the model, shall we say, of from which the ukulele evolved. The braguinha is actually a small little four-stringed instrument that was actually tuned differently than the ukulele. But as I said, it evolved over time, and we'll get into that a little bit. Won't deal really that deeply into history of the ukulele because I'll just point you, there's, first of all, go to the internet, there's like everything you'd ever want to know about the history of the ukulele. But a couple books you might enjoy is Jim Beloff's book, The Ukulele Visual History. This one is actually a little bit more related to the visual part, the companies that made ukuleles and what they look like, and lots of memorabilia of Hawaii and things like that. It's really cool in that way. The other book I actually just got today is from the University of Hawaii Press. This is a much more say, scholarly University of Hawaii Press edition, and it really goes into great detail about the history of the ukulele and the makers and actually method books, which is really cool. Because that's what I'm interested in, is the actual teaching of instruments. So method books are cool. So the idea is now that ukulele then is categorized by their sizes. So they come in four sizes really. The soprano, which is the smallest one, which is what this one is. And then there is the concert that's a little bit bigger and more rare. Then the tenor that was made famous by Is played tenor ukulele a lot. And then, of course, the biggest of the ukuleles, like down there on the end that we'll play later, the baritone ukulele. Now, not only are there differences of their size, but it's also the difference in the way they're tuned. Now, the interesting thing about tuning is that there were many tunings, let's say, in the development of the ukulele on different pitches, A or G or C or whatever it happened to be that someone decided to tune their ukulele to. But it kind of standardized itself over time into what we call the C tuning, which then develops this tuning of it where we begin with string 4, and 4 is the string that's on the top. So the top string is the 4th string, and then it goes down to the 3rd and the 2nd, and then towards the floor is the 1st string. And then the tuning from the 4th string is G and C and E and A, and the sentence for that is good children eat apples. So good children eat apples is the G, C, E, A. Tuning of C tuning, and that's pretty much the standard tuning of ukulele now. Now the concept is then that this tuning really, and we'll get more into this a little bit later in the show, is really made different not by the letters, but actually by how they tune the 4th string. So there's two ways to tune it, and neither one is correct or wrong. It's just a preference, and it has something to do with what you're playing, actually, as we'll see. But the difference of the ukulele tuning is not really their pitches, the letters. It's actually that this 4th string can be a high G, and this gives you the iconic My Dog Has Fleas tuning. Now that tuning is called re-entrant, and re-entrant means that you're re-entering. In other words, you're out of order in your tuning system based upon your starting high, and then it's going low, and then going back high again. Now this G then is the G that is above middle C, and then this C string, the third string, is actually middle C, and then the E string is the E above middle C, and A is the A above. And so this idea of out of orderness of tuning is also not uncommon in an American type way, mainland American way, is because Lester Flatt and Scruggs and those guys, Earl Scruggs, he developed the 5-string banjo, and the 5-string banjo is a reentrant tuning because it goes high G on that short 5th string, and then it falls down and goes up. So this out of order reentrant tuning actually found its way into bluegrass music. Now the difference then of this high G reentrant tuning is the low G. And then this is the another ukulele, and this one though, this time the 4-string, and you can see it has a wound string on it, and this creates a low G sound. So this goes. Now when they're ordered like that, from low to high, then you call that linear. So we have a linear tuning of low to high. The point to remember though is that it's still the same letters. It's still the G, C, E, A. It's just that this has a low G. We'll go a little bit more into that when we get to these ukuleles. This ukulele is low G also, but the difference of this one is that it actually has a plain G, which means it's not wound. And it's smoother, and so it doesn't squeak like they say wound strings squeak. Although the wind on that 4th string is so tight that I don't really notice that much, especially relative to guitar. But what I find on the plain G is that it doesn't have the same dynamic volume level that the wound string has. The wound string's got more punch to it and has more sustain and vibrancy and stuff, but it's just a personal preference whether you like to have a plain low G or a wound low G. So that's what the tuning system's all about. Now on the baritone ukulele, which is obviously a bigger one, then what the baritone ukulele is, that the baritone ukulele is really just like the 4 strings of the guitar from string 4 to 3 to 2. So its tuning of letters is even different. This is D, G, B, E, which is absolutely in the same pitch and letter name tunings of the guitar itself. So you might say in a certain sense that the baritone ukulele really is a little guitar because it's the same tuning and pitches of a guitar. This particular ukulele I just picked up in Hawaii last month, and I thought it was really cool. I just went to a Long Strug's and paid $16 for my Chinese-made ukulele, which has actually just a molded plastic fingerboard and everything. But for when you're just cruising around Hawaii and just going to the beach and having fun and playing, then just you don't want to be taking your your 1927 Gibson down there or your 62 Kamaka or whatever to the beach. That wouldn't be such a good idea. So you just pick up something. If you happen to go to Hawaii, just go to the drugstore and pick up a little ukulele and start playing. So it doesn't really matter. They're still plays. Now, of course, it's the tone of things. It's actually the way they sound. This is just made in China, and it's just like plywood. But who cares? You know what I mean? In that sense, it's just fun. And of course, I love it because it's got the Hawaiian flag on it, and I thought that was totally cool. Now, this tuning of the ukulele itself would have to wonder where did they come up with these pitches that they agreed upon? Well, actually, then it leads to the guitar in a certain sense. And the ukulele is like if you take a regular standard tuned guitar and you capo on fret 5, then what you're going to get are the letters G, C, E, and A. So that's what really makes it be that it is that length of the guitar that actually creates it. Now the difference is that when you play the 4th string of the guitar, then of course that's in linear tuning, so that's going to be a low G. But it turned out to be that in the very beginning of the ukulele, it turned out to be that re-entrant thing where they had the iconic, "My dog has fleas," and it gives it a very characteristic sound of actually what I call the ukulele. Now, regardless of how you tune the ukulele in any pitches you choose, whatever, what really remains the same is a musical aspect, and that musical aspect is the intervals, the intervallic relations. So no matter how you tune the ukulele, they all, or the guitar even, they tune out to be the same intervals. So from the fourth string to the third string is a perfect fourth. From the third string to the second string is a major third, and from the second string to the first string is a perfect fourth. And that intervallic relation of perfect fourth, major third, perfect fourth remains the same on all the ukuleles and the guitar for 4 strings worth, no matter what pitch you determine or decide to tune it to, whether it's A or G or D or whatever. It doesn't really matter. The intervals stay the same. So the idea is we would, if we had the time, which we really don't, to play all these ukuleles one after another, what we would really notice is, besides that tuning and high G and low G and all that kind of stuff, is that they actually sound different. Some sound, shall we use the word, cheap, like 16 bucks? Or does it sound real rich and full and, shall we say, expensive? This is a Kamaka ukulele, 1962, vintage thing. But while I was in Hawaii and went to the music store, brand new 2015 Kamaka ukuleles just there at the music store on the rack begin at 1,500 bucks. So you're looking at, you know, an expensive situation. And then the idea is, of course, their tone is so different. Much more vibrant and resonant and rich. And of course, this has low G that helps to make it sound that way. So ultimately, your wallet decides what kind of ukulele you're going to get and what kind of sound you're going to be able to have relative to what is the quality of your ukulele. That Kamaka I just played is koa wood. Of course, it's got all that age on it, so that helps the wood. This is a, now you can find deals. I found this many years ago in a little flea market, actually, antique store thing. And it's a 1927 The Gibson, and rosewood and mahogany stuff. And I think it's all mahogany, actually. And 1927, I only paid 25 bucks for it. So there are deals out there if you can find them. So this ukulele, 1927 Gibson, Series 1, has a very bright, well, first of all, it's got the high G. And it has a very bright, although it's got the mid-range on it, and it has some resonance, but it certainly doesn't sound like that Kamaka with the koa wood. And the Kamaka actually has a little bit, the bout is the width at the end of your guitar or ukulele or whatever, and it's got a little bit bigger bout, which gives it a little bit more of a resonance cavity and box and makes it be louder based upon resonant. Then, of course, playing with your thumb or your fingers, that has something to do with the tone itself. So here's your thumb. Here would be a fingernail. And then, whatever I did with it, there is, it's on the floor here, there is a felt pick, which, of course, was in the 60s and stuff like that. People would say, get a felt pick and play. And then a felt pick, which feels really weird. I don't use that. But it gives you a sound that's really kind of soft and muted. So felt pick, if you're into that, I'm really not. Now, the next part that we would really talk about is that no matter what ukulele you play, now here's one of my students, actually, this is his ukulele, the Lanikai, that has that plain fourth. A couple $100 on an ukulele like this. The next concept of the ukulele is, actually when I was like third, fourth grade, 8, 9 years old or whatever, the very first stringed instrument I ever played was like ukulele. We had a pretty advanced music department or class or whatever you want to call it. And besides just playing the recorder and all that kind of stuff, we actually played ukulele. So the first stringed instrument I ever played was an ukulele. So I kind of have a feeling for the ukulele in my past. But the point of that is that then, of course, I moved into guitar, and I've been playing guitar for quite a while, obviously. And so when I come to the ukulele, I still carry with me this concept of guitar and bring it to that. Now, if you were just playing ukulele from day one, then this would be your instrument, and you would think like this. Now, I'm going to say what that really means. But I come to the ukulele from a guitar perspective, which, of course, a lot of ukulele players come from already playing the guitar and knowing something about it and all that, and then they come to the ukulele. So the next part of this whole thing is that because the guitar and the ukuleles are all really tuned the same in terms of their intervallic relation, then what that means is that all of your chord and scale patterns are actually the same. So what we have now is, if you imagine that you had a guitar, that would be what we call open C chord, but you only got 4 strings, so you don't use that 3rd finger. So when you look at this on the ukulele and you play this as a guitar player, you look at that and go like, oh, well, that's a C chord. But actually, in fact, if you were like to get a ukulele chord book, what you would find is that they would show you that pattern that a guitar recognizes as being C, but what it is it's actually an F major chord. So you're playing what the guitar player thinks is C, but actually it's F. Now, the way for a guitar player to deal with this naming difference without getting into the next thing we're going to talk about is that you would have a scale degree relationship. Like when you go 1, 2, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, you're really saying the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like that. So the relationship is when a guitar player sees this shape, he says it's C, you would think that that is the letter of 1. But when you talk to an ukulele player, or actually, in fact, what it really is based upon the tuning that we're going to get into, Capo 5 and all that, this really is an F major chord. So what you do is you say, guitar sees it as C, but it's really to the ukulele 4, tone 4. So C, D, E, F, 1, 2, 3, 4. So if C is 1, F is 4. So if I think I'm playing C, it's really an F. And you have this tone 1, tone 4 conversion or transposition that says no matter what you play on your guitar that you think you know, like guitar would say, oh, that's a D shape. But actually it's not a D shape because it's tone 4 of D, and tone 4 of D is G, so this is a G major chord. So that's a real easy and simple way to turn all the guitar shapes that you know into their proper names and letters on the ukulele. Now where that all comes from is that if you had this capoed guitar, which is really what we said the ukulele really is tuned like, then you would say that if I actually put my capo on and played the shape on the guitar of what everybody would say, oh, well, that's a C, open C major chord like caged. Actually, it's not a C major chord because of where you're actually playing it on the guitar. And where you are actually playing it is that this sound right here on the 5th string, that actually is F. So when you play that C chord shape with a capoed 5, it is actually, in fact, an F major chord. So when you play this little, quote, guitar's C shape, but it's been capoed, it really is F, and that's why it's that C is 1 and F is 4, that 1 to 4 relationship. So that's really why that all comes about, because it's like a capoed, 5th fret capoed guitar, so all your shapes are actually moved up 5 frets, and 5 frets is tone 4, perfect 4th. Okay, got that far. So now then, I guess in the end, what it's all about is that's all fine and good, and that's what ukulele is all about, and that's some history of it, and some looking at how it's tuned, and low G and high G and things like that. Now, let's have a musical reason for this stuff, or the difference that you could make musically based upon the fact that you have a high G or a low G. The main concept of the high G and low G relates to harmony and melody. So with both ukulele tunings of high G or low G, it really doesn't make any difference when you play harmony, which is chords. Then it's just going to make it sound like high at the top. That sound. So that gives you that real bright and high sound. If you go to the low G and play the same thing, chords and harmony in this sense with low G instead of high, so other than the fact that one sounds low on string 4 and one sounds high, there really isn't that much of a difference. They're both playing chords, and so who cares? It's just a preference. Do you want to have that low sound on your chord or the high sound on the chord? It doesn't really change greatly what's happening in the harmonic sense. But in the melodic sense, a lot changes. And what changes is if you have a high G, playing a melody becomes problematic for one reason. There is no tone 1, the first sound of a scale. So if we play a scale backwards, starting with the octave of 1, which is tone 8, we'd have tone 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and then everybody out there is hearing, oh, I know what that is. That's going to be da, tone 1, that low sound. But in fact, what happens on the high G, it goes back because of reentrant to tone 8. So it doesn't go low. And because of that, that's not so good for playing melodies. Playing chords, not really a big deal, really. It's just a difference of sound, but the chords sound fine and actually cool, and it sounds like an ukulele with high G. But you can't play melody because you can't, I mean, it doesn't work for the melody because you can't get the tone 1. Now, when you go to the low G and play that same scale backwards from tone 8, if I was in tune, and here it is, 1. And that's why low G in 2015 is kind of a popular tuning of the ukulele, more preferred, let's say, than high G, because it lets you play a melody. And then that becomes important because melody is the other half of music, or a third. There's rhythm also. Well, I had a lot of tunes that I wanted to go through, but I'll just bang through some things real quick and just show you that for a guitar player, you'll recognize these shapes, but remember it's a 1-to-4 relation. So when you play something that is supposed to be like on a guitar an E chord, but you're only playing 4 strings, well then that E major chord is actually then going to be a fourth of that, which would really be, that would be an A major chord. So a song like Aloha OE, that was written by Queen Liliuokalani in 1878, and King Kalakaua and Liliuokalani, the royalty of Hawaii, they were back there when the ukulele was first being created, and they really liked the instrument, and they were musical and had all kinds of things going on at the palace, and really promoted and played the ukulele a lot. So Aloha OE was one of her tunes. Little Grass Shack, let's use a high G on the thing. I'm just running through these tunes. Maybe a different show will go more into playing a little bit more. But in Little Grass Shack, I want to go back to my little grass shack in college. I want to be with all the tiny little leaders that I know long ago. I can playing on the beach at home now. I can hear the lion saying, call my mind. place and it's where I want to be. Well, I'm just a little Hawaiian, I'm a wholesome island boy, and I want to go back to my fishing port. I want to go back to my little crash shack in Calico, Hawaii, where the huma huma nuka nuka go swimming by. Where the huma huma nuka nuka apu go swimming by. And that's the Hawaiian state fish. We got a couple more seconds here that we could do something. Another 1933 song that's real fun. This would be another high ukulele. You can kind of say, would you play highly or high G or low G relative to the time. This is on the beach at Waikiki. Like that. I love that tune. That was 1915. The Little Grass Shack was 1933. We'll save Iz for another time. He is so important in Hawaiian music that we'll look at him next time. So till next time, have fun, get an ukulele, and play some Hawaiian songs. Aloha.